Lorna Irungu-Macharia.
You got my name right.
It's so nice to see you. You were one of Kenya's first TV personalities. Yeah, one of our early stage celebrities at a very young age, because you got onto one of our first locally produced TV shows. What was that like at that age and in that era?
So I like that you use personality, because this whole thing of celebrity is a thing that has come up much later. And Jimmy Garth was looking for somebody to co-host with him.
Right.
And so he told me, "Oh, come, I think you'd be great for TV." And I failed my screen test. So that's one part people never. I went and they told, "You're not cut out for TV.
This is not for you.
This is not for you. I suggest you stick to, writing stuff." So that was my first thing. And then he insisted and he said, "Let's do this differently." And we did a show with him. And great chemistry, and we loved it. And that's how I got into it. And so suddenly what I was studying and the job that people wanted to do after, I was doing it. So it was a pleasant kind of accident that really then defined and shaped a lot of the things post that.
And then shortly after that, a few years later, you became well known for an altogether different reason.
Yeah.
A
Yes.
serious illness
Yes.
struck, and the world changed.
And the world changed. That's actually a good way of saying it. When I was working, which is the other thing, I've never been a very healthy child. I had asthma growing up, asthmatic bronchitis growing up. So I was never the healthiest of children. And lupus, which is what I ended up suffering from or being diagnosed with, I'd actually suffered from it for a long time. We just not diagnosed it. So I was constantly in aches and pains, even while stage, even when I was doing the stuff with Club Kiboko, but we never knew what it was. So yes, in the midst of all this, after I'd graduated and still working out KTN and taking on multiple roles, is when I really got ill. And the lupus then led to kidney failure. And the reason it was such a public battle for me was, at the time, yes, I was a personality.
Yeah.
My appearance physically changed, and then out of course, sparse questions and things. And that's actually where the visibility became a problem, because one of the symptoms at the time was I lost my hair. I lost a lot of weight, I lost my hair, and I had a horrible rush down my face. It's called a wolf rush. So you just kind of get a whole rush that just comes on your face and your cheeks. And a lot of people looking at the symptoms, you've lost weight, you've lost your hair, what could you be suffering from? HIV, or rather AIDS. It wasn't even HIV, it was you have AIDS. That was the only part. But the diagnosis of lupus and getting to know what it was at that point changed my world dramatically, because not even because of lupus, the diagnosis, but because of what it caused, the kidney failure. And that was a whole new.
You kept it going.
I kept it going because the truth of the matter is, I had to find a way to stay alive. Even just for yourself.
Yeah.
It's very easy to give up and say, I'm done. I remember working for Kiss FM on dialysis. When Kiss FM launched, I hosted the breakfast show with Caroline Mutoka and I did the news. And literally, I used to go for dialysis 3 times a week and have to be on the show. At the end, I couldn't really master it. It's already pressure enough just being on that show and having to be there at 6 a.m. and sometimes leaving and going straight for dialysis, and dialysis wipes you out and then having to go back the next day and go to work. No. So yes, I did continue working the entire time I was
Really?
here. Yes.
Which must be quite challenging, because it's so tempting to think, okay, until I'm okay,
Yes.
I can't do this. But you just kept at it.
I kept at it because I think part of me needed to. After my first kidney rejected, I went through a really terrible phase. I went through about 2 months. I remember my mom calling my sisters who were abroad and telling them, "Come, she's not going to make it." And I checked myself out of hospital. I was like, "I'm not doing this. I'm done. I'm not doing this." And the doctor intervened, and the doctor is the one who got me to, say, "You've got to be able to keep fighting and do this." So at that point, I got to the point where I figured it out. But yes, it's not easy. It's not easy.
Then eventually, over many years, you fought it off and got your career back on track.
So yes, not the career I initially had.
Yes.
So my career has evolved as my health has evolved. Because something happens when you speak out. People tend to remember only what happened. So I became a single story, and all people remember is one to the person who was very sick, one to the person who was very sick. So I've actually had people turn me down for work and say, but we're not sure about your health. We're not sure about, you know, if you're still going to be here. Which is tough for me to hear, because you're trying, the whole purpose of you going through the transplant and everything is to lead a normal life. And then here you are being told, actually, no, you're not normal. Whereas I thought in the beginning I was going to be a hardcore journalist. I ended up doing a lot more stuff in communication, in entertainment, things where opportunities showed up and where I felt I could use my talent, even if it was not the original plan. And that for me was actually probably the reason I put my heart and soul in that job, but because I was given the chance to do it.
Sure.
And because of that, then I made a choice after that I would never be in places where people made me feel inadequate or where people made assumptions about my delivery until proven otherwise.
And now, years later, looking back at all those experiences, can you look back and with some wisdom now and the learnings you had from that?
First and foremost, I spent way too much time listening to what people had to say about me. One doctor told me I was very lucky to have lived 2 years. This was 20 years ago. Somebody once told me I cannot be with you because you have no future.
Wow.
That was insane. Like, oh my goodness, you actually said that out loud. You know, you can think it, but saying it out loud. And so for me, the lesson that came out of that is one, people like you only when you're at your best. All right? And the other thing was, you have to be very careful about the words you choose to hear spoken about you.
Choose to hear.
Choose to hear. You choose to hear them. And that goes with who are you surrounding yourself with? What are the spaces you're involved in? Because then they're going to say words and probably say them about you. At the end of the day, where your life is concerned, in health, in career, you make your best choices, but you need to be very deliberate about them. I fire doctors. People don't understand that. They're like, how do you? I'm like, because a doctor is supposed to work with you. And I think too many times we just take them for gospel truth and whatever you're going to say, and we don't question. So be very careful. If you meet somebody, if you're in a situation and you meet somebody and they reinforce negativity into your life, then they're not helpful. Even in the most difficult time, I remember one of my doctors who was like, when we were having my third transplant, and then I said, I don't know about this. And he said, you know what? I've been doing this for 20-something years. We've never done a third. But you're willing?
Yeah.
We're willing. We'll do it.
I mean, it's such a lesson in resilience. The reason you're here on the back seat is, you know, coming back from setbacks, even extreme setbacks, is a feature of success, isn't it?
And I think it depends on what you define success as. So people define success as making a lot of money, as moving up the corporate ladder, we all have different definitions for success. For me, my success was getting up every day and going to work in spite of how I felt. And trust me, some days I was like, I made it, and would have a small party. I love my family. They're like, I have cheering squad people. But because of that, that's the reason why I was able to do the things that turned up. But resilience for me was not, I think people think you wake up and choose to be courageous.
Yes, it's a choice you make.
Yeah, and I think partly you don't, I can't call myself a courageous person because I was terrified half the time. I have had massive bouts of depression, of not figuring out what to do.
Courage doesn't often look like it at the time.
Exactly. I think that's a thing. And so people are like, you're very brave. I'm like, I don't feel brave. I don't feel brave. But my question is, if I don't, what else? In my last bout before I had my third transplant, and then I was in hospital, I was in ICU for 2 weeks. When I got out of ICU, I could not walk. And I said, there's something about your body giving up on you to that extent that you can't walk. And that for me was scary, and learning how to do that again. So today, my excuse is, you're not what you're going to say about me, but is I remember that I have been in a place where I can't walk, and I learned how to work. So everything else, I could deal with it.
Lorna's story is about bouncing back. We are going to be caught off guard many times in our lives. We are going to be sent tumbling repeatedly. What matters is not whether you saw it coming, but whether you can deal with it when it does. The ability to stay calm is more important than the ability to foresee. Resilience of spirit is of more use than a detailed plan. Character is more important than preparation. We will have richer lives if we accept that we will be down on the floor many times. Our greatness is in how we get up, not in avoiding the fall. See you next time on The Backseat.